Hello, Aldwin Alternay here. I am going to be presenting 7 days of 7 awesome media magic steps that I have created in my formula for how to gain free publicity. And today is day 1 of those, day 1 of 7. And today is about articulating your story. Now, for those of you who don't know me before I get into this topic, my name is Aldwin Alternay. I am known as the Media Queen. What I do is I help people get their message to the masses using online and offline media. And something I'm really passionate about is sharing more truth in the world and also good news. And I have a story behind both of those things that I stand for in the media. And I just love the media. I love the power of the media and being able to share a message, being able to reach hundreds of thousands, mostly nowadays millions of people with your message. And I know a lot of people I come across are time poor. They're incredibly busy. And if that's you, then you definitely want to be using the power of the media to leverage your message and reach more people. It also helps to boost your credibility, your authority, your influence in the community. It is invaluable getting free publicity, which is what I specialize in. So the first step of my awesome media magic formula steps, as I say, is articulate your story. Now, everyone has a story, whether you realize it or not. And articulating your story is one of the foundation elements of putting together a PR campaign. It's actually looking at your story, looking at what it is that you want to promote. Is it a product, a service, or a message? What is it that you want to promote in the media? And what is your story behind that? Now, your X factor is your story. Since the beginning of time, human beings love stories. And if you feel like you're the world's best kept secret right now, well, most likely you haven't been sharing your story or your brilliance or magnificence with the world. Now, when it comes to looking at your story, it's really important to look at times in your life where you've had some really low points. Have there been times when you have had some really dark moments? And often it's after the biggest breakdowns that there are breakthroughs just around the corner. And there are also many lessons to be learned from that. So, what are some of your breakdowns or breakthroughs that you might have had in your life? What are some breakdowns or breakthroughs that you have had, and how does that relate to what you're doing now? So when you think about your business or what it is you're passionate about, often there will be a story behind that. Now, some examples of stories. I worked with a guy called Stephen Esser a few years ago. He was known as the webinar guy. And part of his story is that 5 years previously, he was a panel beater in a heavy metal band in the western suburbs of Sydney. And he was fairly broke doing the muso lifestyle thing. And 5 years later, now he's a multi-millionaire using the power of webinars. Well, how did he do that? How did he go through that journey? There's a great personal story there. Now, one thing I'm passionate about is good news, as I mentioned, and truth in the media. And I actually started Truth Expose TV on my YouTube channel after investigating people like David Icke and realizing that we had been lied to for a long time through the mainstream media. And I think anyone who questions anything will start to realize, put 2 and 2 together and realize that we're not getting the whole truth from mainstream media. And so I am a stand for truth and for people questioning everything. And regardless of your opinion about what's going on around COVID or behind the scenes or what the hidden agendas are, whether you call it conspiracy theory or whatever you call it, you do your own research is what I'm a big stand for. And, I do believe beyond a shadow of a doubt that We are being lied to consistently through the mainstream media, often because there are hidden agendas. And having worked as a journalist behind the scenes, I can tell you there are hidden agendas in the media, and a lot of people are being brainwashed and not realizing they're being brainwashed. So I am a stand for people speaking their truth, and also for people researching and finding what is true for them. I think that's really important, particularly nowadays, and also being respectful of other people's opinions. Now, when it comes to the good news, well, I grew up where my dad in Sydney, Northern Beaches area of Sydney, my dad would always watch the news every single night, not just one news channel, he would watch multiple news channels. And it was often very, very depressing and very negative news. Some people say CNN stands for constant negative news. And, after all these years of watching negative news, I remember as a kid, actually, one night going up to my dad and hugging him. I was in tears, and I said, "Why is the world so miserable? Why are things so awful out there?" And he said, "Aldwyn, that's just the way life is." And I'd like to believe that there's a lot more to life than all that negativity. And I think, sure, there's always going to be some negative things happening in the world, but at the same time, there's also a whole lot of positive things happening in the world. And how can we focus more on that and get conscious more around that rather than the negative stuff? And the other thing around that is my dad always said anger is danger. So I internalized my anger for a long time, and that led to depression. So over the years, I've had depression. I've had 4 friends who have taken their own lives before the age of 45. And statistically worldwide, there's about 1 million people a year who take their own lives. And now the numbers since COVID have been going up as well. So I believe that if we put more good news out in the mass media, that we will be able to lift people's spirits, and we'll be able to reduce those statistics and help to create a happier, more loving world by sharing more good news and what we're grateful for. So in line with that, I created a Good News Day on the 8th of the 8th, 18. Just had our 3rd annual event for that, the Global Good News Day, which is on Facebook, and also the Global Good News Challenge, which I just started in June 2020. I only just kicked off with the Global Good News Challenge, and we have different challenges every month. We started out in June with a 7, 14, and 21-day challenge. And then in July, we had a 5-day challenge. And in August, we've just had an 8-day challenge. And now in September, we're kicking off with a 9-day Facebook Live challenge, which is starting on the 1st of September, which is very exciting. So what it is, basically the Global Good News Challenge is free for people to get involved in. And basically you just share your name, what you do, 3 things you're grateful for, and a piece of good news. And it's just amazing how powerful that is when you not just write down what you're grateful for or think about what you're grateful for, but when you actually share it, when you get on a Facebook Live and share it with people, which you can do on your personal profile, or you can do it in the Loving Life group, and just hashtag Global Good News Challenge. All the details are on the Facebook page, Global Good News Challenge. It's amazing how it will just automatically lift your energy, and it'll lift up the energy of those around you. A lot of people's good news challenges have been going for about 3 minutes, which is awesome. So, everyone can take 3 minutes out of their day to share some gratitude and share their good news. And the good news can be something about you, about someone you know, or it could be something you've seen on an online news site. Now, the beauty is now there are so many good news channels now in the mass media. The world of social media has only been around about 15 years. And so now the whole world of the mass media is really, really exciting for the way things are moving forward and how we're actually consuming messages and putting out messages. And now what's happening, out of the 7.8 billion people in the world, there are 3.8 billion active social media users, which means what's happening now is that journalists are looking to social media every single day for story ideas. So what you put out is really, really crucial, because you never know who might pick up on what you're putting out that may actually want to do business with you or want to interview you. And sharing your story is a great way to capture people's attention, to get on podcasts, to get on online news sites. So some of the places you can look for positive news, there's the Good News Network website, there's Sunny Skies News, Huffington Post, news.com.au. They all have good news sections. So it really is exciting. There's the Happy newspaper in the UK that went viral as well. So I do believe that people are drawn to the light and we want more positive news. And we also want to hear people's stories. Back to the articulate your story. So what are some low points you've had in your life and how have you turned them around to now turn them into a positive? Or what have you learned through that journey of going through hard times? Now, often when I'm working with clients, often when we look at their businesses, we look at how did they start the business they're in, and often there's a story there about how they actually got into business. So, for example, with my business, with AA Expose Media, as it's now known, it actually started as AA Expose Photography. It was a photography business. I'm a photojournalist by trade. So I was working as a journalist at the Gold Coast Sun in 2002, and I was also working part-time with a Brisbane photography company. And driving back from Brisbane after doing big functions like at Brentley's Theatre Restaurant and Crazy's Comedy Restaurant in Paddington, if anyone knows those places, there was 600 people theatre restaurant events. And I would go around and take photos of hundreds of people in a night. We'd go to the lab back in the film days, we'd get the photos printed, and then we'd go back and sell the photos. And so I wouldn't finish work till about 2 a.m. often. I'm a bit of a night owl, so it's about midnight now, and I feel quite energized, actually. This is often when I get my energies later at night. So, so that's what happened. So I had a few small car accidents going backwards from Brisbane to the Gold Coast, which is about an hour drive, and I thought, gee, why don't I just do this for myself? So that's what happened. I started a photography business part-time while I was working as the entertainment reporter at the Gold Coast Sun newspapers back then in 2002. And it's interesting, around that time also, the Sun newspapers went from being a 2-publication paper or newspaper group to actually having 5 papers that they put out every week. So it went from being the Gold Coast Sun and the Hinterland Sun to now being 5 different editions of the paper. So now we have the Upper North, the Central, the South, and the Tweed edition, and no extra journalists. So what happened is when I started out at the Gold Coast Sun and the Bulletin, back in 2000, I was doing 5 stories a week. By the time I left in 2005, I was doing 30 stories a week. So if I had stayed there, I'm sure I would have burnt out. It was a very, very stressful job as a journalist. You know, there were some great perks. I interviewed people like Hugh Jackman, Russell Crowe, Cyndi Lauper. You know, we had the VIP treatment everywhere. I had a whole lot of fun in that, but it was intense. You know, I was working from early in the morning till midnight most nights. It was crazy lifestyle. And the thing is with journalists now, there's a 5-year burnout with journalists. So a lot of journalists do change around a lot in different positions, which is why a lot of media databases that you get out there often aren't accurate, because journalists do change around so often. And particularly now with the whole online world of media, you know, a lot of newspapers are now going out of production, particularly the regional ones. This just happened recently, or they're just going online, right? So the whole world is changing of media. However, needless to say is that all media outlets and journalists are looking for stories. And if they don't know your story yet, then maybe it's time that you stepped up with your story and you left a legacy with what you do. Because every time you get media coverage, that's what you're doing. You are leaving a legacy of some sort, which is awesome. So I encourage you to do that, to step up with your story, to think about what are some different aspects of your story that you could share, and how could you tie that in with a product or service that you want to promote. Okay, what is your personal story? Now, another thing I'm really passionate about is animal welfare. And I have a story about that too. Now, I actually, for years, I saw animal cruelty and I was very, very upset by it. And at 6 years of age, my parents actually went back to Turkey. I've got Greek, Turkish, and Ukrainian blood, which is amazing. Born in Sydney, I was, and first generation Australian. And my parents went back to Turkey for the first time when I was 6 years of age. And there was this beautiful big sheep that I befriended at my grandma's place. And I remember I'd go run down to the sheep every day, and I'd go give the sheep a big cuddle. It was about my size, the sheep, or I was about the sheep's size. And I remember one day being so excited. We're taking the sheep out for a walk, and it was a beautiful day. The sun was shining, huge green field. All my family to the left of me was about 20 extended family, all having a great chat and a laugh, and, having great time catching up with each other. And they're always walking with the sheep. And I remember one point someone put me on the back of the sheep and then next to the sheep, and I was holding the sheep. And then next thing I knew, these three guys about double my size came and grabbed the sheep from next to me. Two of them grabbed the legs. One of them grabbed the head of the sheep and pulled out a huge knife. It was about that big. And the sheep was squealing. They knocked the sheep to the ground, and they dragged it up to this concrete block in front of us. And then they just cut the sheep's throat in front of me. Now, I was absolutely horrified. I could not believe what I was seeing as a 6-year-old. I screamed my head off. I remember my dad was holding me back. I wanted to go and save the sheep, and I couldn't, because the sheep was squealing. There's three guys double my size. I was being held back. I couldn't save that sheep. And eventually, when my dad let me go after crazy screaming and seeing the sheep die in front of me, which it didn't die quickly, mind you, it was a horrific experience. I remember just bolting to the side of the road, and I cried my eyes out, and my innocence went in that moment. And ever since then, I've seen a whole lot of animal cruelty, and I've always felt that I've been hopeless and helpless to do anything about it. And then in 2007, I saw a documentary called Earthlings. Have you seen Earthlings, the documentary? Very, very powerful documentary about how humans have used animals over time, how we've used them for food, clothing, scientific research, and really, really hard to watch. And a lot of people would say that they just can't watch that kind of a documentary. And literally by the end of it, I was holding my throat and I was crying watching this documentary. And I just thought, what can I do to help animals? And I thought, what the hell can I do? I felt hopeless and helpless to do anything about it. And I thought animal cruelty is such a huge issue. What can I do as little old me? And then I did a landmark course. It was a self-expression and leadership program, a 3.5-month course where things like Are You OK Day, Daffodil Day came out of this same program, Red Nose Day. And I did this program. I was sitting there for about 2 weeks in this program. It's all about going out in the community, doing something you love. And I thought, what can I do? And then I thought, I'd love to do something for animals. What can I do for animals? I thought, and I thought I could do maybe a fun day for animals. And so I started to think of some names, and I did some Googling, and I looked up Animal Action Day, and there was no other Animal Action Day anywhere in the world. So I created the world's first Animal Action Day in 2007, a day to raise awareness, appreciation, and respect for all animals. We had about 30 performers and speakers there. We had some phenomenal people, all sorts of different sort of charity groups were represented. And my goal for that was to be a worldwide annual event. And there's actually a video from the very first event. If you look up Animal Action Day, you'll see it on YouTube, the video from the very first event in 2007. And now I'm very glad to say and very grateful that we have had 13 annual events now, animal action events. We did 7-day events and then 5 6-night events now. We've done 6-night events focusing on a different animal every year. We had dinner events, sit-down dinner events the last few years focusing. We did one for horses, one for orangutans, one for koalas, one for big cats we did last year. So had some awesome events. And this year's one is going to be on the 10th of October. This year it's going to be on Zoom. So first time I'm taking the event on Zoom. And so there's a story behind why I love animals, and coming back to the articulate your story, right? That's part of my story, is that, I saw that sheep get slaughtered in front of me. Now, what I didn't know back then is that it was actually a Greek Orthodox tradition that they sacrifice sheep for family that come from a long way away. And what happens with the meat of the sheep is they feed it to the poor village people. So it's actually a Greek Orthodox tradition, a sacrifice as a sign of prosperity and good luck and good wishes for family as well. But even if I had that explained to me as a 6-year-old, I would not have got it. So, it's interesting how life goes. And because over there, it was very common for animals to get killed this way, it wasn't sort of seen by anyone else as anything unusual. But for me, because I connected with that sheep, it was a horrific experience. But, now knowing what I know, I actually look back at that sheep and I'm very grateful for that sheep, because I believe that was the start of my animal action journey. With that, I think that was the seed that got planted there when I was 6, and it's like that sheep was a sacrifice for the work that I do for animals now. So there's part of my story there. So what's your story? I'd love to hear from you in the chat. What is your story? What are some of the highs and lows of your life? And how can you tie that in with something maybe you can align with the charity? You don't have to create your own charity. Maybe there's a charity you can align with where you can share your story and you can actually make the difference that you are here to make. So what is your story? And as I say, often we're too close to our story to see what our story is. However, just a good place to look is where have you had some really low points in your life and how have you come through the other side of that? How have you come through? How have you made it through the other side of that journey? I often say life is like a roller coaster ride. Sometimes you feel like you're on top of the world. Other times you crash right down and then you'll come up again. And then sometimes you go round and round circles in life, don't you? And then sometimes you feel like you're going backwards. Sometimes you have to slow down to speed up as well. So this is the first step of the awesome media magic formula, is articulate your story and look at what is it that you want to promote in the media. What sort of campaign do you want to do? Do you have a book to launch? And I think books are fantastic too. If you do have a story too, there's lots of different opportunities out there to be in compilation books. I'm actually in 9 compilation books. These are just some of the ones I've been in. Elevate Your Mindset is one that I did there. I've got a story with all these different people who've shared their stories as well. Visions of Success is another one that I have a chapter in, all about how to get free publicity. Think Big with Arnold Schwarzenegger. That one also, it's a fantastic book. And this is one that just came out recently. It was actually launched on Good News Day this year on the 8th of the 8th. And this is the Why Not book of empowering stories from female leaders who said, why not? And that actually went Amazon bestseller. It beat Elon Musk recently, so that was awesome as well. But I love compilation books as well as a fantastic marketing exercise to collaborate with other amazing people. So very grateful for all those opportunities and fantastic to be here. So thank you so much for listening. Please do share your story. I'd love to hear from you. And I know the media are waiting to hear your story. They really can't wait to hear your story. And that's the thing to get, is that you are 1 in a billion just by being born. You are extraordinary. And maybe it's time now to step into that extraordinariness of you. You beat 1 billion swimmers to get to the finish line. There's a reason you're here. And if you do feel like you're the world's best kept secret and it's time to ramp it up with your fame, with your fortune, with the freedom that you have, and if it's time to leave a legacy, then the media is the way to do it. And I would love to support you on that journey. If you have any questions, please reach out. You can find me at aaexpos.com and just reach out on any social media. If you search my name, you will find me. All right. Thank you so much for joining me. Have a beautiful day or night wherever you are in the world. And please share your story. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you so much. We'll see you again soon with our step 2 of 7, which will be coming up tomorrow. Bye for now.